Hello, my extraordinary X-Men fans. It's Jerry Rasco, and that means we are here today to talk about the next issue in the Uncanny X-Men series together. Technically, it's not the Uncanny X-Men yet. We are still in the phase where it's just called the X-Men, but we're going to be looking at issue number 8 today. So thank you all for joining me. If you are a subscriber here on the channel, thank you so much. As of the recording of this video, we have reached just over 400 subscribers. So we have made incredible progress since I have been creating these videos and bringing them to you. And if you're not a subscriber, I would say maybe think about doing it. For one, it's free. All you do is click that button. It costs you nothing, and it does help out me and the channel immensely. The other thing is when you do hit the subscribe button, it automatically registers you to win free artwork. Yes, free artwork. So if you love superheroes, you love comics, and you love art, this is a perfect opportunity. When we reach 1,000 subscribers, I will be choosing subscribers at random to win free artwork based on all of the comic review series that we have here on the channel. So let me show you very quickly what you could win just by clicking the subscribe button. So we have our newest, again, as of the recording of this video, we have the newest addition to the series, The Avengers. So we've just started with Avengers #1. You can win this piece of artwork featuring the original Avengers lineup. We have the Incredible Hulk, the second series that we started on the channel here with the reviews. So you can win this piece of Incredible Hulk art. You can win the X-Men in their original school uniforms. Of course, this is the series that we're talking about here today. And this is a chance for you to win a piece of art featuring that original team lineup. We have the Amazing Spider-Man, who started it all. This is the first series that we did on the channel. You can go back and check that out. It's been going for quite some time now. We are up to, I think, again, as of the recording of this video, I think it's issue number 70 of the Amazing Spider-Man. So doing one a week, we have really been going for a while. So there's a great playlist there for you to check out. Then there are some future series that are coming down the road here very soon. We have Captain America. We're going to be starting this once we reach the point in the Avengers where Captain America is revived and brought onto the team, and then we'll start his solo stories from there. And then last but not least, we have the Fantastic Four, the book that started it all, the first family of Marvel, the team that created essentially the Marvel Universe. So we're going to get to this series as well. So just by clicking that subscribe button, you can win some free artwork. So take a moment, hit that button for me, and win some art. In the meantime, we're going to talk about X-Men #8. It's kind of a weird issue. It's pretty good, but it's a little strange. Let's get over and take a look at it. So this is the cover to X-Men #8. It is... Actually, as far as this series goes, if you have been following along so far in the first 7 episodes, this is the first time we've got an image of the cover that doesn't appear to be digitally retouched. This appears to be original, as far as I can tell. We've got some distressing at the top of the book. So as far as I can tell, this is the original cover. Up to this point, for whatever reason, they had been showing them with digitally recolored covers. But here we have the original cover. We have a new character, a new villain that the X-Men must face, and they're all being cast away from this new villain with ease, and the figures are all being shot towards us. This is not a common, but it is a reused trope that we see many times. I can think of several examples. For example, this original X-Men team, much later, becomes a Marvel team with their own book called X Factor, and there's a cover that features the villain Apocalypse in the center and the rest of the team being flung out away from him. Very similar, just obviously different tweaks, but the concept is there. I like what they're doing here. I like the Beast a lot. I feel like he has the most motion and twisting of the body, which makes sense because he That's a lot of his powers, is his agility and his acrobatics. Scott is a little stiff, so Cyclops is coming off a little bit stiff. Angel is pretty good. I would have liked to have seen those wings spread out. That's always been my biggest regret, I would say, of the series so far, is that because of the combination of small spaces, small panels, we don't get to see Angel really spread those wings and get to see all the incredibly, lush feathers being drawn. They're always sort of curled up and pinned up to his body. But otherwise it's a pretty good cover, and the white background really does help emphasize all the figures. Now, a couple of things here. Number one, the villain. So we've got his name here, and I'm going to say I honestly have no idea how you would actually pronounce this name. I've never been quite clear on it. Is it Eunice the Untouchable? Okay. Is it Unis the Untouchable? Or is it Unus the Untouchable? Untouchable? Unus untouchable? I always, in my head, I think I always thought it was Eunice, but it's just a very strange name. And my guess is that Stan Lee came up with it probably just because of the alliteration of the UN and the UN, and never really thought about pronunciation. It's pretty common for Stan of the time. So it looks great on print, but it's a mouthful. Try saying it out loud. Maybe he thought nobody would ever have to say it out loud. You're just talking about, reading it, so you don't have to really worry about how it's pronounced. That all said, again, pretty good. The other thing I wanted to talk about, which I don't know that we've ever really talked about, is the corner box art. And this is something that I really love and miss a lot in modern comics today. We don't see the corner box art very often, but this was a staple of comics, certainly my whole life. And obviously much further back. This book came out, a full decade before I was born. And so the corner box art was just a really cool thing. So obviously it's drawn by Jack Kirby as well. It's a small little piece that they then print onto every cover. It's great. I find it interesting that the corner box art does change. So it's the same general composition, but Iceman has been changed to reflect a more icy appearance, which he also matches on the cover. I'll zoom back out in a second. We'll get there. And then Jean Grey is featuring the mask that we saw her wearing, I think it was the beginning of the last issue. So she's gone through now 2 mask changes. So she started with the original cowl that covered the whole head, just like Angel, just like Beast, just like Cyclops. And then she went for 1 issue to sort of a pointed mask that sat on her face and all of her hair was loose. Then the next one was sort of more of a domino mask, meaning it's just covering her eyes and bridges over the nose like that. And then all of her hair was loose. And this is sort of this image that we saw previously. However, none of these lasted. And now we're back to Jean with the full head cowl. So it's interesting to change the corner box to match, but then it doesn't reflect it here. But Iceman is, and Iceman was not this form of iciness until this issue. So again, some confusion there about Jean and her design versus Iceman and his design. It's kind of a little weird. Let's see, let's get into it. I always tell you at this point in the video, this is a scanned PDF copy, sort of hinted around to that with the cover and explaining like this is the original and not the digitally recolored version. So this is the real comic that came out in 1964, put on a scanner, scanned, and then into PDF file and added to DVD discs that you can play in your computer, which is what we're doing here. So we get all of these original ads, we get great, all the original page turns, everything that we want to see. Unfortunately, with this one, there are a lot of color registration problems, and we've talked about that. And basically, every page had to go through multiple passes through the printer to have the right mix of colors applied to it physically. And it's the ratio of color mix over each other that makes different colors, from the tones of blue, the tones of magenta here, orange, etc. And when the paper doesn't quite line up with the masking that blocks off some areas and allows colors through, then your color is all off just a little bit. And this particular issue that they scanned really did have a lot of registration issues. So it's a little frustrating from a color perspective, but it's just something you learn to live with when you're reading these old time comics on newsprint. It's just how they were printed together. The splash page. Actually, let's first talk again about the creative team. Stan Lee is still writing. Jack Kirby is still the artist. Chic Stone is your inker. And then again, I believe it's Sal Rosen is the letterer. So the same team we've had so far, at least in the last couple of issues. And again, it's been a pretty nice combination of Jack Kirby's more angular lines with Chic Stone's more organic inking feel. The one thing I will mention, and this does appear sometimes in a few places, is that Chic Stone does not appear to use a lot of large black areas for shadows. You can see here on the costumes, like even Beast, like, so he's bent over and he's supposed to, in theory, be casting sort of a bit of a shadow over his thighs. And Chic Stone uses this contoured rendering line across his legs. There's only shadows of like his pant legs, sort of under an arm, on the boots a little bit, but there's not a lot of real heavy shadows. Even the folks who are standing on the floor. Cyclops is in a suit. We'll get to that in a second. And then Iceman over here. Even Jean on the steps as she's doing her telekinetic practice. Nobody's casting black shadows below them. Iceman just a little bit of rendering here and there. So again, it's one of the things that sometimes the images can feel a little thin because there isn't that dark shadow to help round out the form. And that's really what the shadows do. Shadows help not only show us where light is and shadow and light is and where it isn't, but it also really does help round out the form when you're drawing something. If I just draw a circle and I don't add any shading to it, it doesn't feel like a sphere. Even if I sort of hatch on the side, one side, now it feels like a flat disc that's maybe a little darker on one side. When you add that real black shadow underneath and the edge of one side being very dark, now you start to get three-dimensionality. Last thing, I like the anatomy here, the musculature. Jack Kirby obviously has always used a sort of, stylized form of anatomy. His musculature is certainly not 100% accurate. It's not the kind of thing like you can go to a medical textbook and see where all the muscles connect and stuff. That's not how Jack was drawing. But like the angel here is done really well. It's stylized enough that we know that this is someone who is incredibly fit, muscular, a real form of a hero. And the only thing I wish is, I understand the Beast. He has a looser garment because, again, he has big hands and feet. So I'm assuming the thought was pulling on your pants and putting on your shirt with long sleeves. It would be easier if your cuffs were bigger. Plus, it's sort of for his movement and things. But for modern audiences, we know with modern athletic equipment, sometimes something that's tight and stretchy actually offers you more sense of movement than a loose fitting garment would. So I would have liked to have seen the Beast's costume a little tighter in like the upper arm, upper leg. Just keep the cuffs of the pants loose, because we forget that he's supposed to not only be very agile, but also really strong. This will come into play later here in the story, but the costume isn't doing him any favors. So they're in the danger room because, of course, we always have to start by reminding the readers, hey, this is the team and these are their powers. it's funny that, well, it's not funny. It makes me think that, again, even at issue number 8, we're still assuming that there are folks who have not been reading the book. This is the first time from between 7 and 8. This is the first time that this book was published monthly, which tells you that it was probably doing pretty well at the time. But yet we always start with some sort of scenario where the X-Men are using their powers so that all the readers who aren't familiar can get up to speed very quickly. It's a good story technique. It's just the kind of thing when you are a regular reader that can get very dull very quickly. But you also have this opportunity, like we have here with Iceman, to reveal maybe an improvement or an evolution of powers. So I do like the frosty snowman, Iceman face here, the open mouth laughing. I think that's really, it's good. I think it's really done well. But we first see Iceman for the first time focus in his cold to become even icier as opposed to snowier. So he started out very much looking just like a very soft, squishy snowman. He had formed up to much more of a snow person where it's real. You can see his form. I mean, you can see it here, facial features, etc. Well, now we're going to ice. And I think it's very interesting that they focus here, as far as the story goes, on his ice form being transparent. And which to me doesn't make a lot of sense, because even when he is in his snowy form, the snow is covering Bobby. He's not formed out of snow or ice. And so, yes, he has a colder exterior, but his solid body is underneath the ice. I don't know why he would become transparent. But to sell the effect, if you look side by side, one of the things they've done is they've dropped the shadows behind him. So when Bobby is in his snow form, you can see shadows behind his chest, arms, legs, head. When he is a more icy form, now those shadows are gone, because I guess they're saying the light is passing through him. So maybe he is becoming solid ice. It is something that, spoilers, happens to Iceman decades from now, decades from this story. But maybe that's what they were kind of hinting at the time. The other thing on the top panel there, this is a thing where I find it a cheat. Here's what I mean by that. We see this scene here on the splash page. Beast is on a slack line balancing. Jean is threading a yarn through a pattern telekinetically. Iceman has formed this big, I guess, ice vaulting pole. Angel is flying. There's no other technology. There's no traps. There's no things. There's no whatever. Well, all of a sudden now, Scott stops over, pushes a button on a wall that we didn't see here. So, and a trap comes up, specially designed to capture a flying person around, through the air. Where did the trap come from? Where did the wall of technology come from? It's one of those things where it's not fair to a reader if you don't show it early. You have to establish these things exist. So if I'm drawing a Spider-Man fight and he's fighting Dr. Octopus, and I want Spidey to trick Dr. Octopus into striking out and hitting an electrical box behind Spidey, I have to show the electrical box, then put them into position so that when Spidey ducks out of the way and Ock hits the electrical box, the reader isn't going, wait a minute, where did that come from? Which is exactly what kind of happens here. So again, you don't want your reader to have to stop and go, wait, what happened? It's much easier if you establish stuff even in the background, right? There's plenty of room here. We could have had stuff in the floor. Jack Kirby drew this all the time, just, panels and weird shapes and stuff on the floor so that anything could pop out of it. That would make more sense. So again, just as you're setting things up as a writer and or artist or combination, and you're making your own comics, don't pop out things on the readers without establishing them first. That's kind of a rule of thumb. Of course, we have just story-wise here at the top, we have Scott pining away for Marvel Girl's attention, but he can never profess his affection. And down here, we see that Jean feels the same way, but she doesn't think he likes her. And so the two of them are, pining for each other without realizing it. And then here's another example. So Scott throws this ball and knocks the disc out from under Beast's feet, and that's what he was balancing on this line. I thought he had taken the ball of yarn from Jean, because this is what he's looking at, and thrown the ball of yarn. But that's not the case. A, it's a different color. B, it's rendered differently. And then I realized, there's this little box of something. Is this apples? Is it tomatoes? What is it? But it wasn't established. And so all of a sudden now, magically, there's a box of things that Scott can grab one of and throw at the Beast. So, again, it's very simple to set it up here in the beginning. Here's a great idea. If you want that scenario, that scenario is going to be there. Instead of her threading this needle, maybe she's peeling apples with her mind, or she's juggling them, or she's, whatever. There's things you could do so that Scott could just grab one out of the air and throw it. And then it's established. So again, just some storytelling 101 for you there, for all of you young or new creators. And young does not refer to your age. We can all be young at heart, but mostly like newer creators, people that haven't maybe made comics before. Beast and Iceman need a break. They take off and they see a kid in danger on a rooftop. Crowds are always tough. I talk about it a bunch. So, that's a nice variety of people. It's hard to come up with people at random. This scene here of the boy on the top, this is my example of the lack of... So there is a big black shadow underneath this support of the water tower and then underneath the rim, but that's it. None of the windows are blacked out over here. I've read this issue. I talk about this a bunch. I read the issue. Then I read it again. Then I go through and take notes. And then I record the video. It wasn't until I was writing my notes that I noticed the ladder. And I went, the kid climbed from the window down a ladder and then somehow up on top here. That must be what it is. But because all this stuff is the same color, and this line here is equally thick as the lines on the ladder or this chimney or whatever, the whole thing feels very, very flat. For me, I would have done rendering hatch marks underneath. If there's a shadow underneath here, there should be a shadow underneath this support. But if I rendered it all black, it would just blend in. So I would do hatching to show that it's dark underneath here, especially if you're not going to use color to do it. There should be shadows underneath the chimney, either underneath the window or inside the window or both. And that would really, again, flesh it out. This just feels like a very flat drawing because of the lack of shadows. Beast is like, heck with secret identities. We got to do this. And so he just runs up the building. And again, this is an early thing that we don't really see the Beast doing later. At this point, he's sort of established a few times that with his toes, he can just grip into cracks of bricks and mortar and stuff and climb. I think it makes more sense that if he was using his hands. That's certainly what we would see later. It's not beyond the scope of the Beast to be able to climb a building using his hands and feet, but just walking up it is kind of crazy. But that is a very nice upshot we have here. So upshot means the camera is the camera. We're not taking an actual photograph, obviously. This is an illustration. So it is a metaphor, or it is a pretend camera. The view that we are giving the reader is as if they were behind the camera filming or photographing the scene. And so in this case, the reader view, aka camera, is down low looking up as the beast is running up. And that perspective is very, very nice. But as I mentioned with the whole thing, if you're going to just go with one solid color for everything, if you're not going to color out the windows separately and stuff, then you've got to work a little harder on your ink lines or your line work to help identify that this right here and right in here are windows and are not just part of the building. Of course, Hank saves the kid, and him and Bobby need to hotfoot before anybody can grab him, because immediately, as opposed to being like, hey, he's climbing like Spider-Man, are you Spider-Man or something like that, they immediately go to, it's a mutant, get him, and they get attacked by the crowd. So they get back, they're beat up. Hank is extremely angry and is ready to give up on the dream. So he's ready to quit. He's ready to leave Xavier's, which is exactly what he does, despite Scott's insistence that he stay. And so here we go. So Scott is, oh, I forgot. So previously on X-Men, in issue number 7, if you have not watched that video yet, Professor Xavier has told the team that once that they have graduated, and he has to leave. He has his own personal mission that he has to do, and so he leaves Scott as both the team leader and essentially de facto headmaster of the school. So it comes to Scott to try to keep Hank there, but he's not having it. So Scott reaches out with this device, which I can only assume, it's connected to Cerebro. So in the previous issue, we saw the first appearance of Cerebro, this crazy device that in this spider's nest of cables and wires, and this desk device links to that so he can see the results. So Cerebro allows somebody who isn't telepathic, like Scott is not telepathic, to see the senses or see the results from Cerebro, essentially to be Professor X without having his powers. And so the two of them are able to communicate telepathically using the machine. And we've got Xavier, and he's in a cave, and he's descending into an almost bottomless cave. And he, obviously, we know Professor X is paralyzed. So he is in this motorized, like tank tread wheelchair with this, I don't know what this is above him, if it's supposed to be lowering him or he's going horizontally, I don't know. But just that idea of a cave chair is very wild. But the two of them are talking, and he's like, nope, don't worry about Beast. He's fine. You did everything right. I got to deal with this thing. I'm dealing with Lucifer. And you're like, you're going down a bottomless cave. Like, are you talking about like Lucifer the devil? Like, what is this? I wish that, I understand he's wearing a helmet with a light on it, like a miner's helmet for safety. Just because, again, we've talked about this where, hey, is everybody up to speed on what's going on and who's who? We went through the danger room scenario so that everybody could see what everybody's powers are. Why don't we take this helmet off so that folks who know go, oh, that's Professor Xavier because he's the bald guy. Without it, and to be perfectly frank, Jack Kirby is not always the best at drawing truly unique faces. He's got a few different faces. Hank doesn't look like Cyclops, but if you took Cyclops' hair and glasses off, his nose, mouth, and how you draw the eyes, he might look like Xavier. So there's not a huge variety sometimes, especially in the hero faces. But again, if you show the big bald head, that might help quite a bit. So the X-Men are on their own. Beast is out and very quickly decides he is going to get into the wrestling game, the pro wrestling game, to make a lot of money and to use his abilities in a way that nobody would suspect that he's a mutant, right? He's just a gimmick of a pro wrestling situation. And it's funny, Spidey almost started that way too, right? In terms of getting in the ring with a wrestler to make himself some money and fame. And of course, we know how it turned out for Spidey. But yeah, it looks like the Beast, ironically, continues to call himself the Beast, is a pretty big draw. And he seems to be doing well at wrestling until he comes up to this untouchable champion. Again, Unis, we'll call him Eunice. Now, they treat this as if the two are actually fighting, and this is a real fight. We know that going back, professional wrestling is typically not a real fight. It is a staged athletic performance. I know, folks, I'm not a gigantic pro wrestling fan. I have a passing acquaintance with it. I know people who are super big fans. I've met several professional wrestlers, and I think everybody understands it is a performance. However, it is incredibly athletic, and what they do is phenomenal. So, but this is being treated like it's a real fight. These two guys don't know each other. Hank has no idea that this guy also has superpowers and how it would work. There's no choreographed moves. There is no predetermined winner. This is a straight fight, essentially. At least that's the way it's being portrayed in the story here. So the deal is Beast can't lay a hand on him. And this is what I was talking about earlier, where I wish the Beast's costume would help reflect some of this musculature. Like when we see him in this costume, he's large. He's got sort of bulky, he's got muscles, but because the costume is loose, it's hard to tell. Is it an oversized shirt, or is he filling it up with muscle? Hard to say. And then, of course, with his normal clothes on, it just doesn't emphasize it. Here in the wrestling, we can see he's really thick. He's really bulky. He's not Hulk size, but it's important that we emphasize he's not just athletic, agile. It's also strength. But no matter what he does, he can't hit Eunice. He is constantly being deflected off of him, even on this last shot, which I said is absolutely classic. If the only way I knew about this character is from the Marvel Handbook. So the official Marvel Handbook was a publication that Marvel put out that had all of the history of every character, their specs, their height, their weight, how their powers worked, all that kind of stuff. And that was the only time I'd ever really heard about this character. And this was an image that they reused with him to show his powers. And that was... I didn't realize it was the Beast at the time, but just this idea of somebody bouncing off of him without ever being able to touch him. So basically what he has is he has a little mini personal force field that deflects things when he wants it to, or I guess probably even subconsciously, because we can see like he can grab his cape. He's trying to grab Hank. He can grab the ropes, but when other things try to attack him or connect to him or grab him, it does not work. So that's how his powers seem to work. Immediately at this point, Hank recognizes this is a mutant, and then he puts the connection together. He sees Mastermind here in the crowd. So again, we're still sort of on the Magneto recruiting tour. He's looking for more mutants to join his Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. We just don't see him actively in this issue. It's just Mastermind acting on his behalf. And that's exactly what happens here. So after the match, they get back, and Mastermind's like, yeah, if you want to join us, then you should find the X-Men, because that's been a big piece of Magneto's plan. He wants to find where the X-Men's base of operations is, or Eunice can defeat one of them. So walking down the street, he sees a bank robbery, and he's like, you know what? I'm not going to stop the robbers per se. I'm just going to take the money out of their hands, and then I'm covered either way. So he's robbing the robbers. And I did say these are some dapper looking criminals, full suits, ties, hats. They really went all out before walking into rob a bank. None of them thought to, of course, mask their identity, but they're certainly well dressed. And then Eunice comes in. Like I said, he grabs the money away from the guy. That's a really nice pose there of him ripping that away. Good energy there. So you've got the hand that's back, that same foot is forward, and vice versa. That gives you that twist, power, and balance. So that's really nice. And then the guy opens up with, I guess, what appears to be a Tommy gun. And so it's nice to see the bullets bouncing off. It gives us, again, just another visual representation of Eunice's powers. So the X-Men are out looking, I guess. I'm trying to see. Does it say? What makes you think there's an mutant? Oh, the Cerebro machine. That's right. So Cerebro is the machine that alerted them of a new mutant presence. So they're going to go see who it is. And I said, boy, they got a brand new funky sci-fi helicopter really fast. The last one was destroyed last issue by Magneto. I guess they just have this collection of aircraft at their disposal because they never seem to use the same one twice. I do want to point this out. I've said this a couple times. There was a big Cyclops pinup in one of the issues not that long ago that we looked at. And this is the problem with his visor and drawing it in 3/4 view. So what's happened here is his face is essentially profile. If it was 3/4 view, you might see, the flare of the nostril on the far side. You would see the cheekbone as it protrudes out on the other side. And it's hard with the eyes. So you would see both eyes. You would see one eye primarily, and the other side would be kind of right in that line of the nose, of the bridge of the nose, sort of blocking it a little bit. In essence, I mean, Jean Grey here is drawn essentially what we would call 3/4. It's slightly head on, but if instead of just drawing the little the nostrils at the end, if you drawn the nose of the line of her nose here, that eye would be kind of touching that bridge. This eye is over the side, but this is more of a 3/4 view of a face. This is profile, but the visor comes all the way over, like it's sliding over like this instead of here. Now, if you want to have it wrap around, that is not a problem, but then it can't be square across the front. It has to be rounded. And this is something that's addressed and fixed later in the series when they get different costumes. Angel takes off. Of course, immediately is like, well, there's a guy. I don't know who he is. I'm going to try to take him out. And he flies right at Eunice full speed and is bounced off. Now, there are a couple of things to talk about that happen here, and happen here quite a bit. I'm going to see real fat. Yeah. So we've got a few examples of this, even if we go back. So number one, when your figures like here, close, not quite here, maybe here a little bit, definitely right here in this panel, right here, and then, of course, as I just mentioned, this one right here. You don't want your character to break the panel border, not break it, but be behind the panel border at a joint. You don't have their arm going off panel and have it cut off at the wrist. You don't do it at the ankle. You don't do it at the elbow. The idea is just our brains fill in the gap. But if you see an arm and and it ends here, it's not impossible that somebody has one hand or one foot or whatever. It's just a rule that, I mean, every rule is meant to be broken, but in general, don't have your figures cut off at the joints by the panel borders. That's not great. You also don't want your figures, like we have here, again, sort of here. You don't want your figures touching the bottom panel or side or whatever panel border, because again, it sort of just it ruins that illusion of depth. So right now, the instant that this foot is this close but doesn't break the panel border, it is at the same level and layer as that gutter, which is the space between the panels, and that kind of ruins the illusion of three-dimensionality and the illusion of depth that we're trying to create with these images. So definitely something you don't want to do. You want to try to avoid that as much as possible. But we have a lot of that kind of stuff in here with, again, breaking the, sort of at the ankle. Same thing kind of here. It's very easy to fix just by moving your character up or down half an inch, and that could make all the difference. There's no problem if you want to go like mid calf and he's close enough that we can't see it. That's not a great image either. You probably want to just zoom out a touch, but you could do it the other way too. Cyclops can't stop Eunice because his blast can't get him, his punch can't get him. But at the same time, Eunice isn't really hurting the team either. He can throw Cyclops away, but Jean Grey helps catch him, or Marvel Girl, I should say. Iceman tries to freeze him. Eunice is able to break out of the ice, and then he's going to go after Iceman. Angel tries to take a shot at him. Again, doesn't work. A gut punch just is deflected off to the side. So Angel goes, guess what? We're going for a ride. And this is great strategy, by the way. I think this is really good. I like the transition from this panel to the next. So you've got they take off. Eunice is holding him, like a wrestling hold around his head. And Angel goes, guess what? We're going to go. And if you let go, you'll fall, and we'll see what happens. And Eunice calls his bluff. You're not going to drop me. But I like the wide shot to the close-up. I think that's really, really nice. And then this one being, instead of being straight up, him taking off straight up, it's turned. That is referred to as a Dutch angle. We take something that should be straight up and down. So those buildings, for example, would be straight up. They wouldn't be leaning to that side. But we take that whole image and we tip it like that. And now we have energy. And we're moving, importantly, from left to right. That helps sell forward progression, energy, movement, because that's how we read in Western culture. And then we cut back over to the next panel. And like I said, what you've got here is great because that Dutch angle goes towards the last panel. So it's helping to move our eyes from one panel to the next. So that's really nice stuff there. Angel's right. Can't hurt him, right? We're good guys. Can't drop him and kill him, but I'll leave him clinging to the side of this building for a while and we'll see what happens. And so at least he can't get in any trouble up there, but the X-Men also are like, we don't have a real way of stopping him. I do want to point out this because I think this is a little bit different for this issue. I don't know that I noticed it as much in the previous issue with Chic Stone on inks. He's doing a very deliberate job of, and I like it, of adding a more thick contour line around the outside of mostly figures, but elements that are closer to the, again, camera, as opposed to something far. So Iceman here has this really nice bold contour. It separates him from the pieces of the ice on the ground, and then Eunice has a slightly thinner contour, and Angel an even thinner one after that. Same thing, we go from the wide shot, which is a much thinner line because they're further away, and now we have these really heavy contour lines around the two figures, which is really nice and something that I think works extremely well. As I mentioned before, we come back real quick. Here's a great example too. This thick outline around Beast as he's flung towards us in the wrestling ring. Again, that's something that I like as a technique. And we're seeing it used to really good effect here by Chic Stone. I bring it up because we've got that here in the corner. Iceman is in the near foreground compared to the rest of the team, so he has a much thicker outline around him. Same thing. Now we cut to Beast is back. He has made his return to the mansion, and he's suited up, and he's working on some technology. And again, he has a much thicker outline around him. It pops him out away from the background details, the other figures, etc. It just helps to sell the idea that he's closer. And again, if you look at now Beast as he's working on this, he does not look particularly large or muscular. The costume is not doing him any favors, especially compared to what we saw him when he was wrestling, right? So it's a little underwhelming when he's in the costume. Now, we'll stick to talking about the art, and we'll talk about the logic and the story progression at the end. It is nice to see super smart Beast. Certainly the Beast that we are used to seeing, the guy who is a master of every form of science, biology, chemistry, physics, you name it, the Beast can master it. And so here we're seeing all he's ever done is just, obviously, he wrestled. He fought this guy one time in a wrestling ring. And now he is back at home developing a device that he's going to use, as he says, that will increase Eunice's power. Now, a couple of things. You know what? I said I was going to wait. Let's talk about it. Weird. So we'll see the story. It makes sense. Beast has a logical explanation for this. Spoilers, he does. It's going to work out for the X-Men. But they're like, what? Why would you turn on us? Why would you increase this guy's powers when we're trying to stop him? He has all the time in the world right now to explain. Beast is just like, you just have to trust me. And he takes off without explaining. Take 2 seconds and explain what you're doing. So, spoilers. If you don't want to know how the comic turns out until we get to the end, go ahead and mute me, pause me, fast forward, whatever. The ray is going to increase Eunice's powers to the point where he can literally not hold anything. So he can't eat, he can't drink. I mean, everything short of air is pushed away from him to such a degree that he's miserable. And so the Beast is like, okay, I'm going to put your powers back to normal, but just so you know, if you ever cause trouble, I'll do it again, and I won't reverse it. And so that's how they get his cooperation to give up this, I want to be an evil mutant and just go back to professional wrestling. Beast could have explained this in 2 seconds. This is 2 panels, 1 panel. Instead of running away, take the 2 panels where they're arguing, Cyclops blasts at him, and then Beast jumps out the window, and explain. If we pump up his power to the point where he literally can't hold anything, then we'll have control because he'll eventually need us to return him to normal. So we'll have leverage on him. He could have explained, and he just doesn't. So I don't understand why. Last thing I'll say, the Kirby machine. Very Kirby design. Super awkward to hold. It's a big box with dials, so he's got to hold it, like cradle like a baby and turn a dial. And then there's two sort of projectors of this ray that then come together into one ray. Why not just have one? Why does it have to converge? It seems strange. So that's a staple of Kirby devices. It's weird. It has awkward shapes and design, and it's just really like, as I put in my notes, I put it's extra. It doesn't need to have two beams that converge into one, but hey, why not, right? So, last thing on this page before we move ahead, this scene of the team being like, hey, we got to follow Beast. If he's going to try to do this, we got to stop him before he makes Eunice even more powerful. And I like this shot a lot. We saw one like this in the last issue too. Team running at you, 1 point perspective of those lines coming down to that single point away from us. So that adds your speed, your energy, your action, and then a nice Dutch angle helps, again, as I mentioned, move from one panel to the next. Also adds energy moving in that direction, right to left to right. And then lastly, this nice, really bold outline again on Iceman in the foreground to help separate him from the middle ground, which is the other teammates, and then the background, which is the hallway. So very nice stuff there. That's a great. I just wish that panel was bigger. That panel could be a quarter of the page would be great. It's just really small, which is sad. When something is really good, I want more of it, right? Shocker. So Beast comes in and does exactly what I just said. He shoots him with this beam. Now Eunice's power is so strong that nothing can stop him. Nobody's going to be able to grab him, hold him, punch him, you name it, right? And Beast is like, listen, you just got to trust me. And the rest of the team is furious. They don't trust him, even though he has given them really no reason to not trust him, other than being mad and walking away for a few days. We got this pinup here. It's pretty good. I like the pose a lot. That's really nice. The small eye holes where it's lined up with the top of the eyelid, basically, again, is a Kirby design staple that doesn't work for me personally. I really like the eye hole to be a little bit bigger so I can see the whole eye. When the eye hole is over the top like that, it looks very sinister, right? Like it's not so much that the eye hole is there, but it's like he's looking out from his eyebrows. So it makes a much more sinister look. The more open eyes makes for a more, I guess, inviting hero look. And then again, same thing in terms of the shadows. There's a little bit obviously here on the face, but it's sort of all over. There's rendering lines on the shoulders. There's some under here. So the light would be hitting his arm. I can't tell if it's supposed to be from above. His head would kind of say it's from above, but then we also have these rendered shading lines on the top of this leg, which means that's not getting the light. So, and then this back of the arm is shadowed, so the light on that arm is coming from underneath. So it's just kind of all over the place. Last thing I'll say, I mentioned this before with the background. No problem. If you want to have a cityscape that's all one color just to make it easy, that's great. But you better make sure you're doing a pretty good job with your line work to separate things. Otherwise, it just becomes a big mush of gray. It's not so bad. We do see some shadows under things. They're supposed to be like fire escapes and windows. Could use a little more. So yeah, here we go. Eunice's powers are great. He thinks it's awesome. Nobody will be. I can even just look at things and send them flying. But he can't grab his cigarettes. He can't lay on a table. His powers fling him off the table. He's walking down the street. People are being knocked all over because his force field has been expanded. He can't eat. They bring him food and it's deflected away from him. And it's just not working. Cyclops has a plan to use like a plastic bubble to put him in essentially a portable hamster wheel, because he couldn't touch it. It can't touch him. So he would just sort of roll in it again like a hamster wheel. But again, Beast has his plan, and he just isn't explaining. He's like, nope, don't worry, trust me. Again, you have time. All this stuff is happening, and there's plenty of time to explain. Iceman has been sent to like do watch out, or what am I trying to say? Not watch. Yeah, he's keeping watch for Eunice to show up, and he's going to alert the team, which is what he does. And they fly back out with the helicopter. So they had to wait for Eunice to show up again, and again, Beast could have explained, and he just doesn't. And here they find him, and things are just flying away. Nothing can come close to him. His powers are just sending things flying in all different directions. And the Beast explains, and he's like, hey, if I blast you again, it's going to fix you. But this is the deal. I'm going to keep this. And if you have a problem, you'll get another treatment, and we won't turn you back, and you'll starve to death. Essentially, that's the idea, right? You're going to starve to death. You won't be able, So he's like, never mind, I'm good. And he takes off. So now he's explained it to Eunice, and the rest of the team now is like, oh. And they're like, hey, thanks, everybody. For just letting me go. And then there's this line of Cyclops, I never really lost faith in you. What? The whole team lost faith in him. You tried blasting him to keep him from doing this, but he didn't explain himself either. So kind of a weird plan. Again, like I said, they had all the time in the world to do this. Sorry, I did have a note. I did want to talk one last thing here before we wrap it up. This face here. This is something I harp on a lot in all of my videos, and that is it's called an upshot. So the camera is below the person's chin looking up at them. And that view is one of, if not the hardest view to draw the human face in. Everything is distorted because of the angle, but this is done extremely well. The chin is going to be very large. It's the closest thing to the point of view, so it's going to be more protruding. The ears normally line up with the top of your eye like this. But because you're tipping your head back, it's going to look like your eye is much higher and now your ear is lower. And that's done very well. The top of the head is not nearly as high. So if you have a forehead that's relatively high, like mine, tip your head back and it's going to shorten that down. The nose is going to be much closer to the eyes. Again, it's all just a trick. It's all an illusion of perspective. It's taking something as simple as like a TV remote, and when I hold it like this, it's straight. And if I tip it like this part is going to appear much bigger, this part is smaller, and these things seem closer together than if I hold it this way. And that's just the trick of that illusion, but you're doing it with a face. And so it's a really hard angle to get right. Lots and lots of people, I've shown it on tons of videos. Lots and lots of people get it wrong. Here, Jack, Kirby, and Chickstone got it perfectly right. So great job there, fellas. That is awesome. That is the end of the comic. So let's kick it over to the desk and we will wrap things up. So that is X-Men number 8 featuring, we'll call him Eunice the Untouchable. Not a huge villain in the pantheon of the X-Men villains. Certainly not when you compare to people like Magneto, Mr. Sinister, the Juggernaut. There's a lot more X-Men villains out there than Eunice the Untouchable. But fun, and hey, we got away from Magneto for an issue, which is a nice change of pace. We saw a different kind of power set, somebody totally different, and we saw some more team dynamics. There's some good stuff in there. There's some art-wise, there's some stuff that's a little challenging. I talked about things like putting your characters in relation to the panel borders and what you should and shouldn't do. But overall, it's a pretty good issue. For my ranking, I'm going to give it a 6.5 out of 10. Again, there's just some stuff that I found to be a little hokey. I would have liked to have seen a little less space given to the training in the beginning and maybe use more of that as a, when they fight Eunice, that happens. That's kind of over and done really fast. I would have liked to have seen a better attempt, or would have liked to have seen Eunice doing more. Other than him robbing bank robbers, we don't really see him do much more. And then he just kind of walks out and he's like, hey, I'm here. And they start fighting. But I would have liked to have seen a little more action in that case. But overall, pretty good. And I'm very interested in seeing the next issue. And I hope you are too. As always, hit that subscribe button. Drop me comments. I'd love to know. Did you read this? Is this a story you were familiar with? Is it something you've never heard of? What do you think? How would you pronounce Eunice? Is it Eunice, Unis, Unis? How do you pronounce it in your head? Drop those comments. I love to read them. I check them all out. So thank you so much. And don't forget, let's be here together this same time next week for even more X-Men. Thanks.